Hello everyone, please contact Professor Robert for a sample or a customized paper of the following or any other assignment. MKT3007. Consumer Behavior. Description. Faculty of Business and Law. Module Name. Consumer Behavior. Module Code Level Credit Value Module Leader. MKT3007, 620. Assessment Brief. Assessment Title. Critical Literature Review. Deadline. Weighting. 50%. Feedback and grades due. For academic weeks, please see NILE. Resit Date. Please read this assessment brief in its entirety before starting work on it. The assessment task. You are required to provide a review of the following 3 articles. These articles provide an overview of thematic changes that have defined the evolution of consumption patterns and the underlying factors and drivers behind the nature of these changes in consumer behavior. Article 1. Zukin, S. and Maguire, J. 2004, Consumers and Consumption, Annual Review of Sociology, Vol. 30. Article 2. Behaviour, 8. 2005, Beyond the Extended Self. Loved Objects in Consumers' Identity Narratives, Journal of Consumer Research, Vol. 32. Article 3. G. and Belk, R. 1996, I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke. Consumptionscapes of the Less Affluent World, Journal of Consumer Policy. Rating across all articles, you should critically discuss and evaluate these articles. Summarize the key points before providing a critique of the discussion, utilizing the concepts discussed during the teaching sessions or from additional readings. You can use the following broad guidelines to complete your review and critique of the article. Purpose of the assessment. The purpose of this assignment is to encourage students to think more critically about consumer behavior and apply areas of cultural, social, personal or psychological influence on consumers today. This will be achieved by the critique of an article discussing consumer behavior from at least 10 years ago. Students should be looking for areas to challenge or expand upon as they relate to current academic thinking in consumer behavior. Some issues for students to consider. Remember to summarize the key points of the article. What are the big overarching themes that the paper refers to? How are consumer identities seen to be developed? What evidence is there of culture of consumption? To what extent are the views presented contemporary of today's consumer society? How has consumption become an aspect of consumers' everyday lives? Is this relevant for all consumers? How are identities seen to be developed through the consumer bubble? What do the authors state defines a culture of consumption? How have times changed? What do the authors say about a global culture of consumption? Why are stories important for understanding consumption? What do the authors note about less affluent countries, emerging markets, post-socialist countries? Why is an understanding of this important? Learning outcomes. The learning outcomes that are being assessed in this assessment are subject-specific knowledge, understanding and application. Apply behavioral and psychological theories, concepts and models to purchasing behavior and marketing responses. Critically evaluate the decision-making process and influences upon a consumer. Demonstrate an understanding of the issues pertinent to the emotional and personal needs and wants of individual consumers utilizing concepts related to self-identity, employability and changemaker skills. Select and use a range of sources of information to argue and counter-argue ideas professionally and empathetically. Your grade will depend on the extent to which you meet these learning outcomes in the way relevant for this assessment. Please see the grading rubric at the end of this assessment brief for further details of the criteria against which you will be assessed. Word limits, where appropriate. The maximum word limit for this assessment is 2,000 words. In accordance with the assessment and feedback policy, as stated in section 4.40, where a submission exceeds the stipulated word limit by more than 10%, the submission will only be marked up to and including the additional 10%. Anything over this will not be included in the final grade for the assessment item. Abstracts, bibliographies, reference lists, appendices and footnotes are excluded from any word limit requirements. In line with section 4.41 of the same policy, where a submission is notably under the word limit, the full submission will be marked on the extent to which the learning objectives have been met. Assessment support. Support and guidance will be delivered in the workshops face-to-face, in addition to supporting materials online on NILE. Generic grading criteria. You will find the generic grading criteria for achievement at university grading criteria. Also explained here are the meanings of the various G grades at the bottom of the grading scale. Assessment submission. To submit your work, please go to the Submit Your Work area on the NILE site and use the relevant submission point to upload your report. The deadline for this is 11:59 p.m. UK local time on the date of submission. Written work submitted to Turnitin will be subject to anti-plagiarism detection software. Turnitin checks student work for possible textual matches against internet available resources and its own proprietary database. When you upload your work correctly to Turnitin, you will receive a receipt which is your record and proof of submission. If your assessment is not submitted to Turnitin rather than a receipt, you will see a green banner at the top of the screen that denotes successful submission. And work email directly to your tutor will not be marked. The only exception to this is when you are instructed to do so because Turnitin is down. Late submission of work. For first sits, if an item of assessment is submitted late and an extension has not been granted, the following will apply. Within 1 week of the original deadline, work will be marked and returned with full feedback, and awarded a maximum bare pass grade. More than 1 week from original deadline, maximum grade achievable LG, L indicating late. Extensions. The University of Northampton's general policy with regard to extensions is to be supportive of students who have genuine difficulties, but not against pressures of work that could have reasonably been anticipated. For full details, please refer to the extensions policy. The module leader can, where appropriate, authorize a short extension of up to 2 weeks from the original submission date for first sits only. Mitigating circumstances. For guidance on mitigating circumstances, please go to Mitigating Circumstances, where you will find detailed guidance on the policy, as well as guidance and the form for making an application. Please note, however, that an application to defer an assessment on the grounds of mitigating circumstances should normally be made in advance of the submission deadline or examination date. Plagiarism and academic integrity. Unless this is a group assessment, the work you produce must be your own, with work taken from any other source properly referenced and attributed. The University of Northampton policy will apply in all cases of copying, plagiarism, or any other methods by which students have obtained, or attempted to obtain, an unfair advantage. If you are in any doubt about what constitutes plagiarism or any other infringement of academic integrity, please read the university's Academic Integrity and Misconduct Policy. For help with understanding academic integrity, go to Unpack and follow the top tips for good academic practice on the Student Hub. Please note that the penalties for copying work from another source without proper referencing are severe, and can include failing the assessment, failing the module, and expulsion from the university. Feedback and grades. These can be accessed through clicking on the Feedback and Grades tab on NILE. Feedback will be provided by a rubric with summary comments. For work submitted to Turnitin, please also click through for within text comments. A summary box of feedback comments will also be given in addition to the grading rubric. Thanks for watching.